What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, continuing my deep dive into Santana's catalog. And I just dropped a video reviewing the latter half of the 70s. So I thought as we go through the decades, or as I go through the decades, I would do the live albums from that decade. Make it easier than just dropping a massive live album review at the end, especially because these first two live albums, I have a lot to say about. First two live albums, he released two in the 70s. Lotus, which should have been a game changer, but unfortunately didn't get released in the States, I don't think, until like decades later. And then Moonflower, which is a really fantastic album, but captures a more traditional, what we imagine Carlos Santana sound, as fantastic as it is, than Lotus, which is much more of the jazz fusion, Miles Davis drenched type Latin rock that he was doing in the like 72, 73, 74 era. But this is fantastic. So I'm going to rank them. And then as we go on, I'll rank them through the decades. I'm not going to put a list up at the end for these. I'm just going to talk about them in the order that I like them. And of these two, Lotus and Moonflower, my second favorite is Moonflower, released in 1977. Live tracks from December 76. Double album. Great. It's, interestingly enough, it's half studio tracks, half live tracks. I don't know, it's actually half and half. There's 16 tracks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it's half and half. The studio tracks are not that bad. They start off almost deceptively like, oh no, this is going to be like a soft rock jazzy thing. But as we go through the album, there's a number of just absolutely amazing studio tracks. And other than a handful of festival tracks early, the live stuff is just absolutely fantastic. The festival tracks are good, but they don't differentiate much from the studio tracks. 16 songs, opens with something called Dawn Go Within, which the title sounds like the beginning. It's Dawn. It's a studio track. Sounds like we're welcoming you into the live experience. Over the course of the 2.5 minutes, it feels like the sun rises, you get some coffee, you go for a brisk walk, and then your day is ready to begin. We get a handful of live tracks. Carnival, Let the Children Play, Jugando. They go right into each other just like they do on Festival. Pretty much the same vibe as the Festival, just a little more live energy. Let the Children Play is a little bit shorter. Then we get two studio tracks, and this would close out side A. So each of the sides starts off with a studio track. This is the only side that ends with studio tracks. You get something called I'll Be Waiting, which is the only thing on here that I'm like, it's like your 70s smooth rock vibe. Really nice bass playing on here, but the song itself doesn't do much for me. I think it was a single for here. I don't think it did very well. And then we get a track called Zulu, which is really good. Some like nice jazzy keyboard-led funky instrumental. Absolutely amazing. Funky piano, some synth funk, just little prog light action. Really good studio track to close out the first side. Side 2 opens up with a short 1.5-minute studio track called Bahia. Starts off with some nice upbeat piano stuff, a little proggy lights, some like nice jazz flavor. Then we have 3 amazing live tracks. Black Magic Woman, Gypsy Queen. This also appears on Lotus. I like this version better. The tempo, it seems a little bit higher. The energy is fantastic. Carlos is just killing it on the guitar. And the vocals kind of work. Who is the vocalist on this one? I think it's the same vocalist on both. Oh no, it's Greg Walker. He's bringing it. Vocals are good on this. They don't make me really miss Raleigh too much, though I miss him a little bit. But excellent version of Black Magic Woman, Gypsy Queen. And the ending of this, when they go into that closing, they just ride that for what seems like almost seems like, wait, is the album skipping? What's happening here? Were we caught in a loop? Really nice, jammed out, well played. Black Magic Woman, Gypsy Queen. Then we get Dance Sister Dance, the opening track off Amigos. Pretty similar to the studio version. A little bit faster, a little more upbeat. I do think I like the slower studio version better, but not complaining about this. And during one of Carlos's solos, he has one of those long held notes. There's a number of solos in here where he's given us those long held notes, which is Beautiful. Then this side closes out with a beautiful, beautiful version of Europa, Earth's Cry, Heaven's Smile. And I think this is the one that contains the longest note of all of them. Absolutely fantastic. Side 3 opens up with She's Not There, the Zombies cover. Fun. I like it. It's a good time. This one gets points because in Zappa's Summer 80 tour, I think it was the pretty much just the European portion of it, during If Only She Woulda, he would often quote this version of She's Not There and jam around that idea. And those solos are fantastic. We have yet to have one of those officially released, and that needs to be changed if anybody's watching this. Then we get another studio track called Flor de Luna, which has that instrumental chill vibe, a little more upbeat than something like Europa, but it's very much in that Europa vein. And I think sequencing wise, as much as the opening track Dawn Go Within works, I kind of think this should have been like a closing track or an opening track and distance itself a little from Europa, because Europa you just can't beat, and there's too much comparison here. So minor complaint. And then we get a 14-minute version of Soul Sacrifice / something called Head, Hands, and Feet. Don't know if that's a reference to the percussion jam. There's this chiller little jam at the end that has, I think it's got 2 solos. No, it's just got pretty much a Carlos Santana solo. Maybe that's what that's referring to. But this is an awesome, awesome Soul Sacrifice. Energy is great. Carlos is just on fire. The organ solo is on fire. The percussion breakdown is fantastic. The jam, we get about 9.5 minutes of Soul Sacrifice before we get what might be the head, hands, and feet part, but before we get like this chiller jam, and then we go back into Soul. Absolutely fantastic. Energy is fantastic. And then side 4 opens up with something called El Morocco, which is just crazy, weird studio track, amazing bass, some crazy synth action. We get a little boogie jam about halfway through. Like, this is almost like a fun house of Carlos Santana musical ideas. We just go from like idea to idea for 5 minutes. It's an exhilarating ride. Something called Transcendence, which if you're familiar with Carlos, a song called Transcendence is definitely going to evoke a certain softer, jazzier side. This has that. It's got vocals. Energy picks up, and it kind of saves itself from being just kind of a song by the end of it. But it is, along with I'll Be Waiting, I think one of the weaker tracks on here, though I think it's still pretty good. And then we close out with Savoir into Toussaint Le Overture. High energy Savoir. Fantastic organ solo. The Toussaint has great organ solo, great Carlos solo, great jam energy. Yeah, this is a ridiculous release. Really only 2 songs that I think in any way are not fantastic. The 3 opening festival tracks are pretty similar to the festival album, but the Black Magic is great, Soul is great, Savoir, Toussaint is great. This is a strong live album. But it's my second favorite from the 70s. And my favorite album from the 70s is 1974's Lotus. This was recorded in Japan, July 73. The track listing pretty much mimics what the set list from those shows are. I don't know if this is all from one show or a variety of shows, but it feels like a complete show. And this is very much Carlos in his jazz fusion era, kind of what he was doing on Caravanserai, Welcome, Borboleta, with Latin rock thrown in, with just healthy doses of Miles Davis era, Bitches Brew era, Miles Davis, early 70s vibe. That just sort of jazz fusion, funky, freestyle, improv, just awesomeness. It's fantastic. The original release was 3 LPs. It wasn't released in the States until like the 90s on a 2 CD set. That's the one I have. There is a 3 CD version in Japan that I don't have, but the 2 CD version is still better, I think, than Moonflower, and still one of the greatest live releases of the 70s, especially if you like jazz fusion, funk, Latin rock, jamming, guitar soloing, all that kind of stuff. There's only 2 songs that have proper vocals Black Magic Woman and Oyo Como Va. There's chanting throughout other stuff, but this is for the most part a completely instrumental live album. Opens up with Going Home, that welcome, dawn is rising, you're coming into the show, before we drop into A1 Funk, a new song that is just chaotically, progressively all over the map, funky in the best way possible. Miles Davis, just let's get funky and jazzy and jam things out. It's a really almost like in your face hectic opening that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the show. Every Step of the Way follows next. Compared to the studio version, we are immediately in the groove in this one. That one you kind of ease yourself into. This one, already from the beginning, the energy is a lot higher. Really nice solo from Carlos. Really one of those long held notes. Very Miles Davis energy throughout this whole thing. Carlos solo, keyboard solo, nice fade out. One of the cool things about the CD version of this compared to the LP version of this, the LP version of this, Every Step of the Way closes side A. Black Magic Woman open side B. The CD, they have it mixed, and I don't know if this is how the actual recording is or if they did the mixing for the CD. And as Every Step of the Way fades out, you can hear the organ of Black Magic Woman come in, and that little like segue works really well. The Black Magic Woman Gypsy Queen I don't think is as good as the one on Moonflower, but the Gypsy Queen is well jammed out. We get a really good Oyo Como Va. Yours is the Light from Welcome. Not as much percussion in this as on the studio version, interestingly enough. This one just seems a little bit more cleaner, which is strange because a lot of this other stuff just seems more chaotic than the studio versions. Not Yours is the Light. We get a little snippet of Batuka after that. That goes into a new track called Jibaba, which just kind of continues the percussion, the jammy energy of Batuka. This is a very kind of a fast Latin vibe, nice organ playing, just really, really good stuff. That goes into Stoneflower, just the beginning of Stoneflower, just that kind of, this is just kind of an upbeat Stoneflower based, minute and 14 instrumental jam. And then that goes into Waiting, the opening track from Santana's debut album. The organ work on this is fantastic. Great to hear this song. Awesome. Sounds amazing. Then we get a couple new tracks. Something called Castillos de Arena Part 1, Sandcastles. This is sort of a guitar-led instrumental jam. We get a gear, about halfway through this, we kind of gear shift into a super nasty groove. And then the end of this is sort of this just chaotic noise jam that's fantastic. After that, we get a song called Free Angela, which I'm assuming Angela Davis is who they're referring. Super funky, great instrumental jam. We get a downshift about a minute and a half into this to a much cooler groove. But this is a really nice track. Like, and all of this stuff just kind of all feels like one extended jam, even though we're getting these like definite breaks. If you're not a fan of just relentless improv and relentless going at it, this could be an exhausting listen. But if you are, this is just a thrilling ride. And then the first CD closes out with Samba de Sausalito, which just comes right out of a Free Angela jam, just emerges right out of that. This is off of Welcome. Nice instrumental. We get keyboards, get a nice solo, a nice key solo. Just great, great, great stuff. Fantastic. That's disc 1. Disc 2 opens up with a new track called Mantra, which is dramatic sound effects to start. Oh, this one has like some sound effects, and we slowly build the energy, kind of like similar to the way the Waiting builds the energy. And then we get this really cool, chill, kind of moody jam that never really breaks out into something like no volcano peak, but the mood of this kind of just bubbles the entire time, which works well because the next track, Kyoto, is essentially a drum solo, like a 10-minute drum solo in the middle of it. It sounds like somebody's doing playing some cool electronics to add some little variants in it. The drum solo then finishes off and goes into Castillos de Arena Part 2, Sandcastles Part 2. Got a little short reprise with some nice proggy parts. Then we get a 16-minute version of Incident and Neshaber, which is just Neshaber, is that how you say it? just, yeah, just jammed out. I mean, we get organ solo, Carlos Santana solos, so Carlos completely goes off. We get a My Favorite Things quote, like a full, like a half a verse of My Favorite Things quoted by Carlos, which is pretty cool. We get that nice sort of chill part at the end. So another keyboard solo, another Carlos Santana solo. Yeah, just, I mean, what 16 minutes of incident. What more could you want out of life? Absolutely fantastic. Then we get a Sea Cabo, really, really nice Carlos Santana solo. A lot of chord playing, really flurry of chords, kind of gets funky at the end. We get a Samba Bati, which is just, this is beautiful. The Samba Bati is absolutely amazing. And I think the best part about the whole thing is it's 9 minutes long. In the very beginning, he's very playful. Reminds me of like Trey and Fish, things like Divided Sky, or when Trey's like about to build a solo and he'll stop and go on, stop, go on, then kind of do some licks, and it has that kind of playful energy, and you can hear the influence of Santana on Trey specifically in his playing in something like Samba Bati. So we get some opening Carlos, we get a nice keyboard solo. Carlos comes back. And the thing I love about this is over the course of the 9 minutes, we never really, it doesn't go to this volcanic peak. It's not a solo that like has to build to this like frenzied like climax. It's just Carlos playing. Kind of reminds me of, from roughly the same era, Zappa's solos in Dupree's Paradise, which almost just seems like playgrounds in which he was just messing around. And that's the vibe Carlos gives this one. It's amazing. Then we get something called Mr. Udo, which is Savor kind of, but this feels a little bit different. Feels like the bass is a little bit different on this. It used to be called Savor, I think, on the original release, and they called it Mr. Udo. The bass is a little bit different, but then that goes into Toussaint like it does on Moonflower, and we get an awesome jam to end things out. And it just kind of, the ending is kind of weird. We get a flurry of noise, and then it's like, oh, we're done. It's over. But almost near perfect live album. Like if you like your jazz fusion, you like your Latin rock, you like your Miles Davis, you like guitar solos, you like organ solos, you like percussion solos, you just like a band going out there and absolutely killing it, then this is for you. But yeah, that's what I got. 70s from Santana, 2, I would argue, must-own live albums. Half live in one case, half studio. But the studio stuff is good from Santana. And I recommend that you check them out and get them because they're good lessons. But so far, that's my ranking of Santana's albums. My favorite is Lotus. My second is Moonflower. We'll do the 80s after we drop that video. Let me know your thoughts on these albums. Subscribe, like, share, comment. Thanks for watching. Peace. Talk to you later.